What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Foster Moreau. It's official, boys. He's on the Saints. In case you missed it, a lot of the story. Okay, so let's go back, right? Earlier this offseason, it was announced that Foster Moreau was visiting the New Orleans Saints for a free agent visit. We're like, oh my God, that makes all the sense in the world, right? Him and Derek Carr have a pre-existing relationship. Saints don't have really a true inline tackle, or tight end. And we all got very excited. Then there was a bit of bad news. And shout out to Saints team, Dr. John Amos, as they're conducting the physical on Foster. He actually finds a mass, right, within Foster. And granted, it's a weird thing, Jake, where at the time it was I don't want to say positive, but it was miraculous in the way that they found it, right? Like it was a stroke of good fortune to find it through the physical, and then so you could immediately start to attack it. Well, at the time, and it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, right? So at the time, it kind of felt like, okay, you know what, man? It sucks. It's not going to work out, but who cares about any of that, right? All we want to know is, Foster's going to be good. Foster's going to be okay. And, well, all of a sudden yesterday, Adam Schefter tweeting, they've agreed to a deal, 3 years, $12 million, $8 million guaranteed. Additional $3 million available. That's a nice contract. Like a really good contract for a tight end, especially nowadays. 25-year-old young guy working on a second deal here. So immediately I'm like, oh, okay, that feels like the Saints feel pretty damn confident about where he's at. And then I'm reading Nick Underhill, and I guess Foster had revealed that the cancer had spread and it was at stage 2, but got a good diagnosis a while back. Doctors were confident they could remove it through treatment and chemotherapy. And then recently, per a Underhill source, it appears that he got a very positive diagnosis. Here's the exact quote, Jake, from the piece. Quote, "The Saints will bring him along slowly, but he is not expected to face any limitations and could participate as soon as next week if team doctors feel comfortable," which is great news for both the team and the player.
Yeah, I mean, everything is great news. It's great news that he was able to catch this and had this physical, and it was a free agent at the right time, and to go to get this full exam, right? And they catch it, because if you're still like under contract with the Raiders, like I don't remember doing a physical every single year when you're starting a new year. Certainly not to that extent. So like that was a blessing that they caught it, and then just to have it not be the issue that maybe we thought it was going to be, because we weren't sure. And then when you hear spread, like that kind of makes you just
that's
oh
scary.
man.
I would have been very scared if I'd heard that at the time. I'd missed it.
Yeah, but I mean, we said it whenever it happened, and it wasn't just lip service. I mean, Foster Moreau is one of the toughest son of a guns that you'll meet, mentally and physically. Like the mental part's probably as important as anything in this situation, because like having conversations with him, like it was just about, hey, attacking it, figuring it out, beating this thing. And so like you never worried about his mindset, but you just never know in that situation. So all of this news is fantastic news, like from a personal level, from a human being level, and then like the football portion of it is fantastic for Foster, for the Saints. Like Foster gets a great contract that he's gone out and earned, and then the Saints feel in need. One of their biggest needs. We're wondering why they didn't draft a tight end. Well, and for this, like they felt good about Foster the entire time, and so it's a perfect fit. He's able to come back home now from New Orleans. He gets to put on the black and gold. Another LSU player that goes to the Saints, and so for so long it was you, Sean, you bum.
100%. Hey, why don't you go smoke your weed, okay, man? Gross. Disgust me, Sean Payton. No, but Jake, I think I love that you mentioned it is perfect on multiple levels. Like just from a narrative standpoint, it is almost Hollywood-esque, right? LSU fans are happy, Saints fans are happy. It's the perfect piece for your actual on-the-field needs. And we can get into this, but it feels like the kind of final piece of the Saints offensive puzzle, right? Like granted, whatever you say, but what if somebody gets hurt? Well, that's any offense, right? It's not like you're going to be like 3 deep at every position. Right now, you have all the tools to put together a very effective and very creative offense. just have Pete Carmichael do. So it works on the field level. You mentioned just like a human level, right? Just an empathetic, feeling what your fellow man is going through, getting that diagnosis, and now signing that contract has to feel incredible. And then the little magic fairy dust springs on top. He's a Jesuit boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he went to Jesuit. He's coming home, playing for the hometown team, saved by a hometown doctor during the visit with said team. And, maybe this story ends with him going on to dominate the football field once again and becoming like a Saints legend or something. Like, you don't know how big this story could get. So it's just it is one of those stories that it's hard to hear about and leave not smiling, which I absolutely love. And he's a hell of a football player. You don't give a tight end 3 years, $12 million, $8 million guaranteed unless you are very confident about what they can do on the football field for you.
Yeah, last year, because he is a wide tight end, and I think most of our listeners would know, like, the wide tight end is going to be attached to the line. He's going to have his hand in the ground. He's going to be a blocker for sure, but also, like, you have to, in today's NFL, have to be able to go out there, run routes, catch a football. Like, it's not just going to fall on the F tight end. Like, the F tight end, well, he's also going to be asked to do some blocking things.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to be able to do both, but certainly Foster will be your starting number one wide tight end, but he can run routes. He can make a play. In 2021, he had 30 catches, 373, averaged over 12 yards a catch, had 3 touchdowns. Last year, he had 33 catches, 420 yards, 12.7 yards per catch, and a couple of touchdowns. And so he has the ability to go out there, run a good route, catch the football, to go along with his blocking. Also, he's got chemistry with your quarterback already, too. Yeah. He's been with Derek Carr for the last 4 years. They know each other. That is an important piece of this as well. So it makes sense on every front, not just because it's a good story, because he's an LSU guy, but for the need that you had, this is like the perfect person you would pick to put in that position.
I agree. And now you look, him and Juwan Johnson create quite a red zone problem, right? Just in terms of matchup, trying to cut them both down. Oh, and then having Mike Thomas in the red zone. Like, are you kidding me? That should be pretty powerful, Jake. Oh, and then you got Jamal Williams, who, if you're going to use Foster's blocking, can just freaking, we saw it last year, managed to get across the goal line. Like, the pressure's on Pete Carmichael. We agree, right?
Yes.
Like, he's under a massive microscope. They have all the pieces.
Yes, you've got the tight ends you just laid out. You mentioned Jamal Williams. You drafted Kendre Miller in the 3rd round. Depending on what happens with AK, you went and got a free agent quarterback.
Yep.
You get Mike Thomas back.
Yep.
Right? You got Chris Olave. You got Rashid Shaheed.
Yep.
You got A.T. Perry in the draft as well.
Who looks like he could,
So you've got the weapons. You got the Jimmies. You got the Joes. Pete, got to bring those X's and O's.
Well, and it's interesting because you're right. You do have the Jimmies and the Joes, but then you also have, I don't know, is he a combination of a Jimmy and a Joe? You have Taysom Hill, right? Like you can use him in any way that you see fit. 3 tight end sets with them, putting Taysom Hill at quarterback with Kendre Miller and Alvin Kamara on either side of it. Like, there's just the
possibilities are endless if
yes.
you use the possibilities that you have.
It's like when you see the creativity of Kyle, and it's not fair to just compare anybody in their field to the best person in their field, to be like that guy, right? It's like telling us, be like McAfee, guys. Right? I mean, why don't you just do that? But honestly, it's kind of how I feel. Like, be a little more Kyle Shanahan-esque. Let's you got such an interesting grab bag of pieces. Figure out how you can put it together to create something truly threatening and confusing.
I mean, look at what Kyle does in San Francisco. Look at what Shane Steichen did in Philadelphia. What he's going to try to do in Indy. I mean, down in Miami, you got very creative, because he's from the coaching tree, right? So you have to. It is a copycat league. Like, every year we'd come in, hey man, they did that. Like, let's try to do our version of that. It happens all the time. You have the pieces to be creative. But if you line up your quarterback under center, run between the tackles again like you did, and play 3rd down safe like you did every game last year, it's not going to matter. Like, those pieces aren't going to be able to show you what they can do for you.
Do we think that maybe some of that is Dennis Allen putting his thumb on the scale for defense, or for a more conservative approach? He can't anymore. He'll do it to his own detriment.
He will. Now, it could be because defensive coaches a lot of times are just built like that. That's not even just DA. That's defensive coaches. But, yeah, I think he has to understand that he can't do that. And Pete Carmichael has to understand you can't be safe, play it safe, and still have a job next year. Like,
Straight
you've
up.
got to do something different. You don't spend that much money on a quarterback to play it safe.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to use the excuse last year that you were trying to be safe because you had Andy Dalton and, if you played it safe, he at least gave your team a chance to win, and you could, with your defense, you could win 21-17. That's no longer the case. You can't do that.
No. You saw it last year. The defense ended up bad, but your offense just sucked. That's why you went 7-10. So we'll see. A lot of pressure on Carmichael and Allen Company, but I like how they handled this offseason. I really do. I think they made a bunch of positive moves. Like, I think the Saints are a better team now than they were at the end of the year last year, and ultimately, is that not the goal of every single offseason? Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.